I think my story should begin with my dad, Rick Castro. Probably the best artist I know. He could draw portraits like no one I've ever seen. He taught me a lot about art growing up. He was the one that kind of got me into it. My art starts with him.
At the start of 1968, 3 years after U.S. ground forces first landed in Vietnam, there are nearly 500,000 Americans in country.
He was a Vietnam veteran. He was in the Army. He served in Vietnam in 68, 69, which were probably 2 of the worst years to be over there.
On January 30th, 1968, the incredible scope of the Tet Offensive catches the Americans by surprise. But it doesn't take long before they begin to fight back.
He served with an engineer battalion, and he always told me that he wouldn't change anything. It was the best time of his life. I mean, he saw a lot of stuff. He told me about a lot of stuff, but he loved it. I decided right after high school I was going to go to art school, art college.
We have unconfirmed reports this morning that a plane has crashed into one of the towers of the World Trade Center.
Once September 11th happened, I didn't really feel like art was what I wanted to do anymore. And talking to him, I told him I was just thinking about joining the Army, and he supported that decision. So I ended up dropping out after my second year and joining the Army. In 2004, I got attached to a military police battalion, and we deployed over to the Abu Ghraib prison, just west of Baghdad. And I was there for about a year. I mean, everyone that was close to me said I was kind of still like a kid I was 21 when I went over, but I was still like a kid. But I mean, they said, when I came back, I was just kind of, a totally different person, like more mature. I was over there for all of 2005. I ended up coming back in December. We had a, welcome home party at Fort Dix, and I invited my dad to come, and he said he was going to come, but he ended up telling me he was sick and he couldn't make it. And I said it was fine. It's not a big deal. But he ended up going to the hospital, and he ended up passing away just literally like 48 hours after I got home. I never really got to talk to him about it, which it hurt me for a while. It took me a while to kind of get over it. I've learned to kind of cope with it a little better, but one of the first things I did was kind of paint a portrait of him and hang him up on my desk. So he's just so I know he's always, he's watching down and he can see all the stuff I do every day. When I got back, I didn't want to go back in the art school, so I saw that the Philadelphia police were hiring, and I was in the academy within months. Somebody told me that our forensic artist was retiring, and I came down, I had my interview, and I did a live composite sketch of a suspect, and they were just like, thank you. And then I went back to patrol for about a year, and then one day I just got a call on a Friday, and they were just like, you start Monday. Well, when I first put in a transfer to come down here, I knew nothing about digital art, and my wife came to me one day and she bought me this whole setup, display tablet, my laptop, all the software, and she just said, it's gonna be hard, but just kind of stay with it and just don't give up on it. And she wrote me a little note that just said, because I believe in you, and I still have it, I have it hanging right in front of me. These portraits started because of that.
Philadelphia police officer Robert Wilson III, an 8-year veteran with the force, was shot and killed Thursday while trying to stop a robbery.
He didn't have any photos of himself in uniform as a sergeant because he was promoted after he was killed. So I spoke to his sister and I said, would you be all right if I did a portrait of him as a sergeant? And she said, yeah, please. So he was the first one. There's people out there that knew him, that loved him, that never got to see him put on that sergeant's uniform for the first time. They never got to see him wear those medals. So being able to present them with something tangible, something that they can hold, something that they can put in a frame and hang on their wall. I never got to show my dad my uniform as a police officer. I never got to show him the pictures I took while I was over there. I never got to tell him those stories. So I think being able to give them a portrait of something that they weren't able to experience, something they weren't able to see, being able to give that to them, it just means a lot to me because it's something that I didn't get to experience. That's why I started this. The eyes, they're the most important part to me, especially that little white glare that you put in there. You could do the entire portrait and leave them out. But once you put those two little white reflections right in the irises and you make those two little white dots, it literally brings your portrait to life. I happened to be driving in Bryn Athyn and I noticed a sign. I was driving on the Specialist Tristan Smith Memorial Highway. So I had never heard that name before, so I Googled it and I saw Tristan Smith was actually killed in Iraq while I was over there. So I made a frame canvas for his family, and then I made a duplicate frame canvas and took it up to the Mission Barbecue on their opening day. And I just asked if a manager was there, and they said he wasn't there, so I just wrote a note and said, "This is who this guy is. If it's possible, could you hang it up in here?" And they did, and it's still hanging up there now. Having a portrait on the wall, it just means that that person isn't forgotten. Somebody is going to walk by that portrait every day and they're going to see it and they're going to look at it and they're going to remember who that person was. That's part of the reason why I do this, is so they're not forgotten. I think they're timeless because the finished piece of these officers standing there, proudly wearing their uniforms and medals, is exactly how their families want them to be remembered. It's like a freeze frame in time, so no matter how many years have passed or how old their children get, the portrait of them will always go unchanged and remain the person that they know and they love. I started this project as a way to help preserve the memory of these fallen heroes. My main goal is to try and capture them the way that their families and friends remember them, to provide them with something that they can hold on to. Whether they're displayed in their living rooms or hanging on the walls in their department's roll call rooms, the prints I mail out end up in the hands of someone who truly cared about the person in the painting. And that's my ultimate goal. It's to be able to provide some level of comfort, no matter how small, and to help with the grieving process. It's an honor to paint these portraits.